Okay, so this webinar is being recorded and we will be posting it to our website. Welcome, everybody. It's nice to have everyone take time out of their day to join us. We're privileged to have our partners and friends from Behavioral Framework presenting today on this critical topic regarding hygiene. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to toss it to our presenter, Ellie. Ellie, thank you.
Hi. So happy to be here. Very excited to go over this with you all. So as mentioned, this is a very exciting and universal topic of building tolerance and independence, particularly when teaching hygiene skills, making it just less stressful for everyone involved. Um, just a little bit about myself and welcoming everyone. My name is Elizabeth. I am one of the BCBAs at Behavioral Framework. We're a company that services the DMV area. We're currently BHCOE accredited, and we work with the Council of Autism Service Providers. We partner, as we are today, with Pathfinders, and we also sponsor events with Autism Speaks. Today, we also have Rebecca, the Director of Learning and Development at Behavioral Framework, that she'll be available to answer questions in the chat that may come up during the webinar today. So let's get started to the fun stuff. So today's webinar is really focused on answering some of the following questions. Is bathing and shower time difficult? Is it stressful for you to present hand washing and brushing teeth? Do you find yourself avoiding these tasks in general just because it's too much to handle in the moment, or it's just stressful for not just you, but the child? Um, do you just do the tasks for them because it's just more efficient and easier that way, and it saves you time and these big emotions from either party? Or you could be a teacher maybe that is looking for more information to better assist the individuals you serve. Okay. Some of the challenges with hygiene are often related to ASD impacting the way things are viewed on a daily basis, the way we handle these from time to time outbursts. It's common for children to struggle with completing these tasks independently at any skill level. It does require multiple um, prerequisite skills. Being able to even hold a toothbrush, for example, can be a step that needs to be conquered. It is also common for children to struggle with tolerating the task at all. For a variety of reasons. It could be sensory, it could be skill related. The good thing is that you're not alone. This is a challenge that many people face on a daily basis at any range of age, frankly, and we're here to help. I wanted to cover a little bit of the expectations for today's webinar. Um, Today's purpose is not necessarily to give an individualized solution for each child. Every child is different. Every person is different. Um, every person is a universe, as they say. So this is definitely to help guide, but it's not individualized or specific for anyone. It could be applied to anyone. Um, we won't be reviewing in-depth, extensive literature regarding tolerating hygiene. And we also won't be critiquing any other strategy or intervention. Like I said, everyone's different. Things work differently for everyone. So we definitely won't be criticizing one approach versus another today. So our goal today is to provide you with basic information regarding why hygiene tasks are difficult and how we can assist with that. So today we'll be covering different types of hygiene tasks, discussing how challenges occur or what challenges may occur. We will be reviewing basic steps to teach these tasks. We'll provide some example plans depending on the examples provided. We'll kind of give a rundown of how we would approach these. Review what we can today to help. And this is what we know about hygiene. So hygiene is important just in general to for quality of life and independence for individuals and caregivers, right? So the idea is always to promote self-growth and independence where they could be in a world where they don't need us to basically handhold throughout. Uh, Hygiene involves multiple steps. When we think about any one of these goals, let's say teeth brushing, there are multiple steps involved, which completes the process. Uh, Many children have difficulty with hygiene tasks. It can also be stressful for the parent and the child. And this can affect the long-term success, right? Because if someone finds it aversive, not just the child or the parent, it could be very difficult to even approach the task. And it can be overwhelming. There are many sensations and experiences that accompany hygiene tasks. It could be loud noises, textures, temperatures. Think of when you're doing your hair, the temperature of a blow dryer, the temperature of a curling iron touching the back of your neck. These are all things that can be aversive and things that can kind of prevent individuals from addressing these tasks. So what do we mean about hygiene? So hygiene refers to the practices and habits that promote cleanliness, health, and overall well-being. For children, especially those with ASD, mastering hygiene skill is a fundamental skill towards independence and improved quality of life. Similar to toileting, one of the first things that we teach children when they get a little older is how to use the bathroom independently. That is a part of all the list of skills that we learn throughout time that make us individuals and independent in our own lives. So types of hygiene include personal care, toileting and bathroom hygiene, and grooming and presentation. So a little bit about personal care. Tasks such as bathing, brushing teeth, hair care, and nail care are involved. Toileting and bathroom hygiene, skills like sitting on the toilet, wiping, flushing, and washing hands are all part of the toileting process. But as you see, there's multiple steps involved in that. It's not just the sitting, it's not just the wiping, it's not just the flushing or the washing of the hands. Grooming and appearance, dressing appropriately for the weather or situation, managing body odor, and maintaining just an overall tidy appearance is involved in the grooming and appearance process. Being able to select the appropriate clothes for the day, for the occasion. These are all steps that sometimes are overlooked, but they are crucial to the end result. So a little quick overview of the research that we base this information off of. If you are interested in kind of learning a little bit more in depth, feel free to take a screenshot or a picture of the following articles. The first article mentions that addressing hygiene skills early builds fundamental abilities that promote independence. The second article listed discusses how sensory issues, such as heightened sensitivity to touch, noise, and physical discomfort, can make tasks challenging on a daily basis. The third one focuses a bit more on children with ASD that often struggle with changes in hygiene routines. And the last one focuses on how you can gradually expose hygiene tasks by breaking down the task into smaller segments. So why is teaching hygiene important? So most importantly, health and safety, right? So as we all, I'm sure, can remember, COVID was not that long ago, and what's the first thing we did? We washed our hands. So preventing infections and illnesses is definitely critical when maintaining hygiene. Next is social acceptance. It promotes positive peer interactions and reduces stigma. And lastly, independence. We're here to build confidence and reduce reliance on caregivers to complete said tasks. So, teaching hygiene is about fostering a sense of dignity and self worth while empowering children to care for themselves, right? So, it's not just the ability to complete these tasks on their own, but feeling confident that they did do it on their own, that they're able to do it on their own. That is the most rewarding part of the process, right? Seeing a skill that they struggled with and they're finally doing it on their own. Effective teaching should respect the children's sensory needs and developmental needs. This is definitely not too meant to be forceful or aversive. Like I mentioned, this is most importantly meant to make it as easy of a process as possible, but also considering every individual's needs and level. So today we'll be using evidence-based approaches like task analysis, chaining, and visual supports, paired with reinforcement that can help create a positive experience rather than a stressful one or a frustrating one. So what do we mean by tolerating? Tolerating or tolerance refers to the ability to accept necessary activities, situations, or stimuli that may be uncomfortable and undesired without engaging in avoidance or unexpected behaviors, right? So I'm sure everyone can relate to encountering um, something that they just don't like. Today, I am forcing myself to wear my glasses that I should be wearing on a daily basis, but I don't. It bothers me, but I am tolerating. um, so some of these other troubling tolerances can be strong smells in specific areas, maybe a gas station. Some people don't like the smell of gas, persistent low noises in cars, or even in an environment like outside. If you have buzzing mosquitoes, a lot of people don't like that. Some clothing fabrics. First thing that comes to mind every time is turtlenecks. This is a universal dislike. A lot of people don't like to tolerate this, but that's definitely one of them. And one that we encounter on a daily basis, traffic. That it's not fun to tolerate, but it's very commonly something we do try to force ourselves to tolerate on average. Um, Tolerance challenges are common, um, but they often also impact our health and our safety and independence if we let it become a hindrance or kind of a block, right? So if we let these strong smells, these fabrics, these persistent noises, we often shut ourselves out from learning certain tasks or completing certain tasks. So a cause for concern. We reviewed why teaching hygiene is important, but why is difficulty tolerating hygiene task a cause for concern? So not tolerating hygiene tasks at all or independently can lead to health problems, such as infection and illnesses, challenges developing or maintaining friendships, it creates dependence on others, on prompts, on just overall assistance. And it can cause some negative emotions such as embarrassment, anger, sadness, frustration, stress. So, hygiene and tolerance. Hygiene tasks come with many different sensations and experiences, making tolerating it a bit more difficult than other activities, right? So, some of the examples that we have listed here is sitting still during a haircut. I'm sure many of you can relate to experiencing having some form of hair care being a little lengthy, and that's not always fun. Wearing clothes with certain fabrics for different weather. Like I mentioned, the turtleneck. Sometimes turtlenecks are kind of essential, especially in this really cold weather lately. So, allowing your teeth to be brushed. It could be the toothbrush bristles that may be uncomfortable. Could be the taste of the toothpaste. We all kind of have our favorite toothpaste that we stick to. When we diverge from it, it could be problematic sometimes. So enduring the sound and sensation of nail clippings, that can be difficult sometimes to tolerate, especially when they're not often cut, and it's just had an aspect of just negativity around it just from the experience alone, and standing under running water during a shower. So, some effective strategies that we'll be covering today will be task analysis, chaining, and visual supports. All of these are effective when paired with positive reinforcement, which we'll cover more of today of what is positive reinforcement, what is task analysis, what's chaining, what's visual supports, but they definitely go hand in hand when we're implementing these. So, task analysis is when breaking down hygiene tasks tailored to steps to the child's developmental level and sensory needs. So, we essentially use checklists or visual prompts alongside the task analysis that can further increase understanding and success. But essentially, we're making something really long into really bite-sized pieces. Chaining helps children learn to focus on one step at a time and building towards completing the entire task. Oftentimes, I like to kind of explain how this relates a lot to math sometimes when we learn the fundamental skills in step one and step two, right? So we learn how to add, we learn how to subtract, then we jump into division, multiplication. So there's definitely steps involved when learning anything, and eventually we get to algebra. Um, Visual supports help children understand and predict tasks, which can reduce anxiety. These supports can be gradually faded as the child becomes more independent. Visual supports definitely help us give us reminders of the next step. uh, One example I often think of for visual supports is my to-do list. I will often forget the next step that I need to do if I don't have the visual support and the to-do list. So, with that goes along with any task, right? So, for the task we're trying to teach, showing pictures, having a written prompt, anything of the sort that can kind of trigger a reminder is very, very helpful. So, as far as positive reinforcement, reinforcement increases the chances of the behavior happening again. It motivates the child to engage in challenging tasks such as hygiene routines or associating the behavior with a positive outcome, right? So, um, if we offer something that is rewarding or preferred or just something the child really likes along with the experience, it does encourage for more what we consider, I guess, good behavior. It would definitely increase the chances of the child even wanting to engage in this task. So, for example, we want the child to wash their hands without becoming upset. We may ask them what it is that they're working for or what it is that they would like, kind of as a prize, as a reward at the end, right? It'll motivate them to work towards something, especially when it's difficult. Um, we also help the child through the process, providing praise and comfort throughout. So little reminders of like, I know this is hard. I know you don't like the streaming water or the taste of the toothpaste, but you're doing a really good job even putting the toothpaste in your mouth. They wash their hands without screaming and crying, so they immediately get to play after with their favorite toy, right? So now we're ending the experience with something positive, which is the opportunity to play with their favorite toy. Um, the combination of these really help promote that positive overall experience, replacing a bit of that stress and that frustration. So reinforcement definitely is contingent on the person, and it is important to find what your child's preferred item, preferred activity is in order to pair with these hygiene tasks. So reinforcement definitely is key. Um, I would say a lot of the focus is on the reinforcement or what it is that they choose to kind of work towards or for. It's important to be very clear and consistent, um, stating exactly what the expectation is in order to receive this exciting opportunity for them to play or have access to this item. So you brushed your all your teeth today. Great job, you have access to this, but definitely expressing what it is that they did well. And if it meets the criteria that you've expressed to them, right? So pairing with natural consequences, so highlighting the natural benefits of the behavior. You washed your hands and now they're all clean. They smell so nice. Just kind of focusing also on the on that result, right? So it's, oh, you did your hair today. It looks so pretty today. You did such a good job today. Um, keeping it meaningful is also very important. Using reinforcers that are motivating and appropriate for the child. These can often change, as I'm sure everyone has experienced that one day children like one thing and the next day they like something else. But keeping that updated of, hey, what's your favorite candy today? Or what's your favorite toy today? Is there something you like to watch lately? These are all things that not just pair along with what you're trying to teach them, but also kind of teaches you about your child. Um, and hopefully we get to the point where we can fade over time. So gradually reducing the reliance on external rewards as the child becomes more independent. So we don't expect a reward every time we do something, but now the activity has become kind of neutral and just something that we do on a daily basis. So the reward is not necessarily required or expected. So what is the challenge that you're encountering right now? So is it part of the task that has become difficult? Is it starting the task that's become difficult? Or is it the amount of help that's required to complete the task, right? So some of the examples we have provided are the child is struggling with the sensory aspect, right? So the feel of water on the skin, or a motor skill of having to squeeze the toothpaste on the toothbrush, or do they just not understand the instruction itself and that's what they need prompt with? Um, does the child resist transitioning to the bathroom or picking up the toothbrush? Is it because they were playing with something they really like and they need to now do something maybe they don't love because it's interrupting the thing they like? Um, are you providing constant prompts or having to hold their hand the entire time, does it become very physically demanding? Um, and or they just don't want to do it because maybe you're doing it for them and that's just easier, isn't it? So creating steps for the task. Um, Task analysis is the breaking down of tasks into small manageable parts. This helps the task become a little less overwhelming and for the learner and for you. So think of tying shoes. When we're learning to tie shoes, we focus a lot on the end result, but it does involve us having to learn how to hold with two hands, how to fold over, how to, there's a lot of steps involved in the tying of the shoe itself. So breaking it up into little steps and reinforcing along the way definitely creates more of a positive and motivating result. Um, So we're gonna make one today. So identifying the hygiene task that poses a challenge, we're gonna create a set of a set of steps to complete the task. And how would we do it? Right? So we have to think back, how would we do this? If you find it difficult to break the steps down, you can watch somebody else do it and write those steps down. Um, for example, I'm a very visual person, so if I think back on how to brush my teeth, it's gonna be very vague. So I would definitely prefer to just watch somebody do it and see how they do it, and maybe see a second person do it to see if there's any difference there, and write what I've observed. The next step would be make sure one single step is not too hard. Okay. So if we write down use soap and wash your hands, that may be too difficult. We can break that into turning the water on, getting the soap from the hand pump, put your hands under the water, rub together. So this is kind of what I meant about observing someone else. Sometimes others take different steps. Um, those steps sometimes can look a little vague, but we can definitely break it down a little further into smaller steps to help understand where is the deficit, where it is that they need help. Um, if we focus on just using the soap and washing your hands, we don't know if maybe it's the temperature that's the issue, or is it that it's too difficult to pump. But breaking it down into really, really bite-sized pieces helps us understand, okay, well, maybe the pressure of pushing down the hand pump is difficult. Is there an alternative we can use temporarily? Can we use one of those sensor hand pumps until they've developed the skill to press down? But definitely breaking them down as small as possible is very helpful. So here we have some examples of what the breakdown would look like. Okay, so we'll start with teeth brushing routines. Step one would be rinsing toothbrush. Step two would be placing the toothpaste on the toothbrush. So step three would be brushing front teeth. Step four would be brushing top teeth. Step five would be brushing bottom teeth. Step six would be brushing tongue. Step seven, spit out toothpaste into the sink. Step eight, rinsing toothbrush. Step nine, rinsing mouth. Step 10, spitting out water into sink. Step 11, dry mouth with paper towel. Um, as we see, this is a pretty lengthy step-by-step process. However, this, depending on the child, can be broken down even further. Um, like we mentioned earlier, this is definitely not to be individualized. Every child is different. Some children may struggle with even placing the toothpaste on the toothbrush. Maybe the angling right of the toothpaste on the toothbrush has become a difficult task, or even finding their front teeth, right? So maybe we need to find a mirror and we can break that down. Um, there's lots of portions of this that can be broken down even further depending on the child and their skill level. The next one we'll cover a little bit is the washing hands. So step one would be turning on water. Step two, wet our hands. Step three, place soap on hand. Step four, scrubbing hands. Step five, rinsing soap off. Step six, turning water off. Step seven, taking paper towel or a hand towel. Step eight, drying hands. Um, as I mentioned earlier as well, this can be broken down even further, contingent on the child's ability and skill level, and what they even find aversive or not aversive, frankly. So let's teach the task analysis. There are two different types of ways we can teach this. One is referred to as backward chaining, and the next one would be forward chaining. So when it comes to backwards chaining, after breaking down all the steps, you will begin to teach the last step first and work your way to the top. Okay, so for example, when you're completing a 11-step process, you'll complete steps 1 through 10 out of 11 for your child when it comes to teeth brushing. Once they've mastered step 11, you can begin to complete steps 1 through 9 and work on step 10. The sequence is followed until all 11 steps are independently completed. Okay, so you'll be helping them at the beginning and kind of leaving the tail end of it where they can start working on it. Once they've mastered the last one, you move up to step 1. Okay, now forward chaining is reversed. So after breaking down all the steps, you would teach the first step first and then work your way to the end. Okay, so as far as, let's say, teeth brushing again, you would begin to focus on step 1 of teeth brushing and complete steps 2 to 10 for the child. Once they've mastered the first step, you would move to step 2, and then step 3 to 10 is done for them. The sequence is followed until all 10 steps are completed. Okay, this is very lengthy sometimes. Oftentimes, backwards chaining can be the preferred option. There's a sense of immediacy of reinforcement because you're completing the steps at the beginning and having them complete the last step, allowing them to have access to the reinforcer much faster because they're already at the tail end of the task, right? So let's say we're completing teeth brushing and you are completing the first couple steps. All they have to do is turn off the water. They get the reinforcement right after successfully turning off the water. When it comes to uh, forward chaining can sometimes be difficult and a little frustrating because the child needs to complete the first couple steps or the first step, then continue with the task and then receive the reinforcement. However, sometimes forward chaining is often used for things like tying shoes because having the dexterity of having to fold it in and moving the pieces along kind of builds a little bit of that skill level, and it teaches them the sequence of it. So it can be frustrating, but definitely another alternative to the backward chaining. And as we've said, every child is different. Some kids are okay with waiting and don't get frustrated. Some children are motivated by the frequent praise and the reminders of success, right? So forward chaining can also be utilized, and but definitely recommend giving a lot of that praise throughout and kind of reminders of you're tolerating this so well. I love the way you're washing your hands with me today. I love how you turned on the faucet. So those also serve as reinforcement. Most of us like praise, so I definitely think forward chaining is if just as effective. It's just it can lead to some frustration from time to time. It's really depending on the child. So looking back on the challenges, we've created a task list for our problem hygiene tasks. So let's revisit some of the questions from earlier. Is there a certain part of the task that is very difficult? Now that you have the task analysis, identifying which step is the barrier and consider breaking that step further um, makes it more manageable to teach, right? So as we discussed earlier, breaking down the step of putting the toothpaste on the toothbrush can help. Um, Learning to set the right temperature on a hair dryer. These are all steps that can be broken down further from what we discussed earlier. Is it simply starting the task? Right? So if it's starting the task, that's the difficult part. We can use visual schedules, we can use timers, we can use transition cues, little pictures that show us what our next step is. So pairing these with the positive reinforcement for taking that first step, for completing this task, can coincide, right? So they can help each other. Um, so is it the amount of help or the that they need for you to complete? this challenge, right? So we can start working on gradually fading those prompts by teaching independence through chaining, visual supports, or reinforcement. Reinforcers to complete the task on their own. Okay, so we can kind of start, instead of holding their hand, we can kind of guide them vocally. Hey, why don't we grab the toothpaste or the toothbrush? Or we can even guide their arm, right? Oh, look, the toothpaste is over there. We can take it. We can start fading back a little bit of those prompts just to help increase their independent responses, right? So just getting them to do it on their own, encouraging them throughout. Oh, that's a great job what you did grabbing the toothbrush or the toothpaste. Um, but also kind of giving that support in one way or another. So we definitely recommend starting small. A lot of these tasks seem very overwhelming and very challenging, not just for the child, but for ourselves. Um, just some reminders: creating a task analysis and using chaining allows us to focus on just one step at a time. Um, as the saying goes, Rome wasn't built in a day. So these tasks are often not built in a day. Focusing on just one task at a time really helps make the experience less frustrating and less aversive for everyone involved. So this makes it more manageable for you, for the child, starts creating a whole different experience and a much more positive one. Um, this also allows you to provide a lot of praise and reinforcement for the one thing that they did, right? So if we focus just entirely on the task, it could be very frustrating. We often don't see the positive that they've completed. This allows us to see the progress, right? So if we have it written down and we have it visually there, we can almost check off the steps that they've accumulated through time that can possibly even be transitioned into other things, and to other skills, right? So they've developed these these skills throughout one task that can maybe be generalized to a different task and make that task a lot easier now. So there is success in the little things. So how to get started now? So we definitely can start by identifying the reinforcers. What is it that our child is willing to work for? Every child is different, and every activity is different as well. Every task is different. So, what is it that they're willing to work for that'll motivate them to complete this very aversive task? Okay, so what is the problem would be the next step. So, what makes it challenging? What makes it kind of the hiccup in the process? Is it the sensory sensibility? Is it the task itself, the skill level of having to grab things, of maybe using their fingers in a specific way? What about the task is the challenging part? Okay. Then we can break it down and create a task analysis. Okay, so how does this activity look? How do we complete this task? How do we do it? Are we going to do forward chaining? Or are we going to do backward chaining? What proves to be easier for the child? What proves to be easier for me? Sometimes it's difficult to kind of due to time constraints for a certain task to be able to take a whole lot of time with a particular forward or backward chaining. So what would be most effective in that moment too? This really depends on you and the skill and the child that you're teaching. Are visual aids required? And what do we want it to look like? Do we want it to look like their favorite cartoons? Do we want it to look very simple and to the point? What would be reinforcing? A lot of these things can be also linked to their preferences and the things that they enjoy. Um, we can make these visual aids look like their favorite Paw Patrol character. AI does wonderful things now, I'm sure. We can pop in an expectation and little pictures show up, but the there's a lot of opportunity there to make it reinforcing, to make it a preferred visual aid that'll motivate them to, right? So that leads me to our next one, which is making it fun, just making it a positive experience for not just yourself, but everyone involved. These tasks are really big things to learn. They're they're things that make us grow. They're things that make us independent and who we are on a daily basis. They may seem small and sometimes trivial, but one of the connecting steps, for example, that I have with my mom is her doing my hair and me learning how to do it the way she taught me. These things can create bonds. These things can create a positive experience, even though it was difficult at the time. The whole process can be reinforcing towards the end. Um, and preparing the area, just having the materials available. Having their little set of, let's say, their favorite toothbrush with their favorite character or their preferred toothpaste, just making it very fun and exciting and just having it available for them. So the plan of action would kind of look like this. We would identify a reinforcer. So let's say it's candy canes. We would identify the problem. They can't tolerate part of the washing of their face. And then we would create the task analysis. Okay, so we would turn on the water. We would wet their face, put face wash in their hands, rub their hands together, close their eyes so that we don't get any of that soap in the eye, rub hands on the face, open their eyes, rinse the face with water, turn off water, and towel dry. The next step would be deciding, okay, are we doing forward or backward chaining? Backward chaining, so we would start with the drying of the face. I'm sorry, the drying of the face. And then lastly, we would see if we need visual aids, a timer to set for every day at 7 p.m. as a reminder. All of this can also be changed throughout. Let's say that towel drying is not the way to go, we can change it to paper towel, or we can change the soap that we're using to something else. All of this can be changed throughout. Let's say backward chaining, it's not really working. We can try forward chaining. This is not set in stone, and this is very customizable and very universal to any task or anyone trying to learn something new. So if one way doesn't work, don't feel obligated or discouraged that it's not working. You can always modify it and try something new. Which leads us to the next part. Uh, Try a different reinforcer if you notice that the motivation is not there. Sometimes we're not really willing to work for something that's not really encouraging. I know that for me, I will work really hard for a Starbucks coffee. So I will do most things for a Starbucks coffee, like cleaning my house. But if someone were to offer me candy for cleaning my house, I would not be thrilled and I probably wouldn't. So the next part is don't give up so soon. Okay. A lot of these things are challenging. So part of the hurdle is getting them to even like the task and to enjoy the task and relate it to something positive. Oftentimes we have these tasks be linked to kind of just a negative experience. Maybe it's just the sensation they heard when they heard the buzz of the hair clippers, that it just reminds them of something cutting them. Maybe they had a bad experience the first time and that's just kind of lingered. So just don't give up on it too soon. um there's a world of reasons why these things can be difficult. It once we narrow it down and kind of change it into something positive and replace that negative experience, um we can change the outcome, but it does require time. Breaking down the task even more, and just starting small. Sometimes, as we mentioned before, these tasks are very overwhelming and very lengthy. So if we look at the overall goal, it just seems stressful because there's just so much involved. But breaking it up into smaller, more digestible steps really helps feel the motivation and feel it kind of moving along. So providing more help on the steps you're working on, but still providing reinforcement, even if you're helping, right? So the fact that they're even completing this task is a good thing, or that they're willing to do this without crying is a good thing. So we can definitely point those things out of, I love the way you're working with me on washing your hands. They smell so good and you're doing a great job. I really like it. or even asking them, is the water too hot? Is the water too cold? Having that communication, if possible, is helpful. Or just reading their facial expressions when they see it. Oh, is it that they're pulling their hands away if it's a little too warm, or are they jumping in if it's the right temperature? A lot of these cues can help create a positive experience. Um, Collaborating with your child's team is also helpful. Maybe the teacher has a specific toy or a specific way, maybe a song that they use that helps them kind of guide through the task that they associate that task with, and it could be used in the home and kind of generalized into that environment, and just make it a lot easier for you to um, kind of transition those two or bridge those two areas for that task. So some key takeaways for today would be just overall, hygiene tasks are hard. Um, Learning how to do something for the first time in general is often difficult, and hygiene is not exclusive to that. There's a lot that goes into it, not just physically, but skill wise, and just um in all regards, right? Especially if we have a history of some sort with that task. So making it easier by creating a step-by-step process through a task analysis is very helpful. It really does make it digestible for everyone, not just for yourself, but for them too. And start with one part of the task analysis. We don't have to think about the full length of the task analysis just yet. Just think, focus on part one. Just the first step is important. And reinforcement is key. A lot of stuff becomes a lot more positive when we relate it to something we like. So that reinforcement is definitely going to make the process a lot easier and a lot quicker to learn, because it's making it more admirable for them, right? So practice equals faster learning. So the more we encounter this, the more opportunities they'll have to learn it, the quicker they'll be efficient and be able to do it on their own. Think of when you're learning to play basketball and you just repeatedly shoot the ball at the hoop. If you do it once or twice, you're not going to get very good, but eventually, after maybe 100 throws, you might get a little better. This goes for everything. The more practice we have, the faster and more efficient we'll be in completing it. And setting a schedule. Just if you have a busy schedule or your child has a busy schedule, just setting times where this definitely gets addressed can be helpful, not just for you, but for them. And kind of creating a routine of, okay, at this time we always wash our face, at this time we always brush our teeth, after this activity we always wash our hands. This can create some sort of expectation and routine where they'll always encounter the task. And it's okay that it doesn't work right away. As we've discussed before, a lot of this is there's a lot of steps involved. There's a lot of reasons that they might not want to complete this, but if it doesn't work at first, we can always modify, we can always change, and it's okay that they're not efficient right off the bat. Um, so for today, we based a lot of our information off of the following references. We do have a resource guide that kind of gives a little bit of a rundown of today's webinar, and it will be emailed to you after the presentation. This is part of a two-part series, and the next one is focused a little bit more on puberty and how that ties into hygiene. You'll be receiving more information on this after the webinar today regarding dates and times of when that'll be live, and when you can access. This webinar will also be available for those who were not able to join us live. It'll be available on the Pathfinders website. Um, Rebecca, do we have some time for any questions?
Yeah, we have two questions. The first one was about someone that is very resistant to changes in their schedule, where it's very difficult to kind of increase the frequency of the hygiene expectations. Could you talk a little bit about what we could do with reinforcement to help that kind of situation?
Yeah, absolutely. We can try, well, first and foremost, we can focus on finding what it is that they're willing to work for. Sometimes these reinforcers get extinguished, and they get boring after a while because they've had access to it, right? So it's finding that motivator that gets them through each one of these tasks. Also, making that item or activity very exclusive to that particular task, right? So if they're resistant to this, let's say hypothetically it's toileting and they love their iPad, making toileting and iPad paired where they have access to this only if they complete the task or if they're completing the task can be really, really helpful because if they love their iPad, they most likely will try to get it in some way that they can. But only making it available for that task or related to that task would be really helpful.
And then the second question we had is are there any changes that you would make to the information you shared today to use it with teens or someone a little bit older?
Depending again on their skill level and their communication level, I would even ask them what parts of the steps are difficult and kind of breaking those down a little further. Communication can be really helpful. Again, this is really depending on the skill level, but around that age group, I would say just communicating with them what they would prefer, what makes it difficult, how can we address this in a way that's helpful for you, but still completing the task. And just having a little bit of that collaboration and that input from them also gives them the sense of authority of, hey, I am designing this. I am choosing what is going into this. So it makes it a little bit less of I'm telling you to do this, you need to do this right now, this way.
Thank you, Ellie. Shelley, we'll pass it back to you. Shelley.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Like we said, this webinar has been recorded. We will be posting it to our website under our recorded webinar page. Neil will be sending out that link along with the handouts when he sends out the survey. So thank you so much for everyone who joined us today, and especially thank you to Behavioral Framework for once again partnering with us. Have a great afternoon.